What is up, family? Hope you guys are doing really well. I've been having a great week. So, got a pretty cool topic for everyone today. Oh, shoot, I screwed this up. I got to add something in here really quick. Got a pretty cool topic for everyone today. And that topic is sales hiring. So, had someone come back to me literally yesterday afternoon asking me about how to hire a salesperson. And, we get these questions a pretty good amount of the time, but it's a challenge. And one of the things that I will tell you, and this is where a lot of MSPs, I think, and just overall businesses, and note when I say MSP, it means managed service provider. That's the niche that I focus on in my coaching business, and that's the 7-figure MSP you see up there, right? They come to me thinking, okay, hey, I want to grow my business, so I need a new salesperson. I need to hire a salesperson. Where should I go? And my immediate question back to them isn't, do you have enough leads for this person to close? Because what happens a lot of the time is they think by hiring a salesperson, they're going to immediately fill a pipeline of sales appointments that they can have. But the challenge is, if you hire a good salesperson, they should be a good closer, not necessarily a good prospector, but a good closer. And a lot of the times what happens is they hire a salesperson in that mode. Instead of a lead generator, they hire a salesperson first, thinking that the salesperson is going to magically create a bunch of business. They expect them to bring in a book of business. They expect them to bring in all these different pieces. And what happens is they don't have enough leads in the pipeline, and time goes by, 30 days, 60 days, whatever goes by. And all of a sudden the deals that you had going, or maybe the warm leads you had, or maybe your internal clients that you want to try and upgrade, maybe those fizzle out, but you've yet to have a marketing system or a lead generating system to provide them a pipeline. And then the person is just kind of sitting around, and then they're sitting around and you say, well, why aren't you closing any deals? And then the salesperson's like, I don't have anything. Well, you need to go prospect. The problem is the personality type of the prospector and the personality type of the closer are two different people. So bottom line, and note, we coach how to market, but we are not a marketing or lead generation firm. Here, we teach you guys how to do that. Our whole thing is master the strategy, delegate the execution. It has nothing to do with we're going to hand you leads. So be careful about that. Also be careful about just outsourcing your entire lead generation system, because that's the next question I get. Okay, why don't I just work with so-and-so firm and I'll outsource everything? I love many of the firms. We have some amazing firms in this marketplace, especially in the MSP vendor space, some amazing firms, but ultimately you are the one that has to be responsible for your strategy, and you have to be the one that drives that. You should be sales and marketing focused versus being super tech focused. Oh, but Chris, then I'm a crappy MSP, or I need to be really good at tech. Nobody's saying be bad at tech. We're just saying be really good at sales first. That's really what we're saying. Okay. Those things are very, very important to do. And it's also really important to make sure that before you hire a salesperson, that you hire someone or potentially build a system, which I highly recommend, that drives leads to your pipeline. You close the deals first. You learn how to sell. You build a system, you build a strategy, you build a process. And with underneath that, you know how to close. And then when you are ready to hire a salesperson, that means that you have enough deals coming into your pipeline and you're maxed. You're literally closing a bunch of deals personally. You're to the point where you're maxed out. And the next step then, because you have enough leads in your pipeline, is to hire a salesperson that you can say, boom, here you go. And that's not even an account manager per se. It's definitely not a prospector. You want to hire a very strong-minded, high-end closer. So I'm going to kind of talk about this specifically and how to hire that closer person, but you have to make sure you follow the things I just talked about ahead of time, because if you don't do that, you're going to be pissed off. And the other thing that comes into this is when the closer doesn't prospect, then you're like, oh, that employee sucks, and I had a crappy sales guy and I had to fire them. When in reality, your lack of systems, processes, and structure cost you a good employee. And then you pissed away 30, 60, 90, 180, 365 days. Like, you pissed away a lot of time is the bottom line. And there's nothing that's worse than wasting time on bad hires. And the bad hire in this case is you doing a bad job hiring. It really has nothing to do with the employee for the most part. I'm not saying there's not a weird scenario everywhere, but for the most part, I even look back at my previous hiring personally, until I had enough leads in place, I expected my closer to prospect. Never going to work. You got to put that in place. And now in my MSP, as I came to the end of it, and in my business now, I provide leads directly to my closer and she closes deals, period. So that's what it's all about. So let me show you guys this really quick. So actually, let me make this a little bit larger. There we go. I'll make me small, that large. So one thing that you want to do as you start to hire a closer, okay, this is an important piece. Let me just pop on that. It's a very important thing. First of all, you have to make sure they are the right personality type. We use the DISC system. It means dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. You can just Google DISC, Google DISC. You can find them all over the place. There's decent free ones, but my recommendation is to pay for one and DISC them. And you want somebody that is pretty dominant and pretty influential. That's a very, very important thing. You want them to be in this place where they're owning the conversation, they're leading by example, they're following a path, and you want to make sure that you train them on the process. Now, that person is also not going to be super compliant. Like, that's the C. Case in point right here, right? So you have to teach them the why behind the compliance, and then they'll get it and they'll come on. But if you just say, do this because I said so, they're going to probably combat you because they're very dominant and influential. And you're also potentially going to butt heads with this person. So you have to have a lot of, especially like me, I'm a 100% D, 100% I. So I'm very, very high D, very high I, pretty low S, pretty low C, although my C has come up as I've realized the why. And you can evolve over time. This is an assessment, not a test. We fail and pass tests. We are just who we are with assessments, right? So make sure that the person that you hire is a very high D, very high I, but you have to give them structure. You have to give them goals and deliverables, and you have to a little bit babysit them in the early stages until they understand the why. Very, very important stuff. Okay. Second part, make sure you ask them what makes them a top performer and what makes them a really good fit for your firm. Make them answer that. That's a very important thing to hear them say. Somebody that's dominant and influential will have no problem having those discussions. You can tell them when you talk with them how dominant and influential they are. Even you just look at me. If you guys have met me or talked to me in any capacity, I pretty much own conversations by design. Unless I'm with somebody else that I super dominant also. We kind of trade barbs back and forth, and not even barbs, but we trade stuff back and forth, but we both own the conversation and there's mutual respect. So you have to make them answer that and what makes them a perfect fit for their firm. Here's another really, really good, important thing. On the fly, reject them absolutely ice cold. This is a really key thing. Oops, I screwed that up pretty good there. Let me fix that. Sorry. Make sure you reject them absolutely ice cold. I'm just going to move that. There we go. Reject them ice cold, look them in the eye and tell them they aren't a fit for your firm. See how they respond. You can even do that and let them walk away and see how they follow up. Because think about what you're doing in that scenario. You're putting them in a place where they have to deal with rejection, just like they're going to have to deal with rejection when they work with you. They have to be able to handle objections. So much of sales is about eliminating the objections ahead of time. You want to eliminate as many objections as you can ahead of time, but you're still going to be faced with some no's. How are they going to deal with that objection? Are they going to be pouty and stamp away? Are they going to be able to handle it? Okay, sure. Or are they going to counter with something? Or are they going to potentially take a no right there and then counter later? So you want to see how they act and how they deliver and how they behave, because that tells you what they're going to do in the face. And this is kind of unexpected. Like if they're a confident person, they're expecting to get the role. So if you reject them ice cold, especially your ideal candidate that you think's a fit, see how they handle that rejection and work with them from that standpoint. Also, see how well they took no for an answer. Be in this scenario where you're like, okay, no, do that rejection, see how they come back to you. Watch that, take notes on that, see how they handle those different things, and make sure as you do a follow-up interview or a next interview with them, you point these things out and bring it to the forefront. So they have to be educated on this and see these things as well. Next part, after the DISC, make sure that you give them tasks to follow up. Now, what I usually do in our scenario, especially in our virtual world that we're in now, is I will talk with some, like we'll put a job roll out, and then we will take applications with specific instructions and things behind it. And then we have a specific list of candidates that get to a first interview. That is a virtual interview, probably a Zoom interview in this case. Then we'll have them do the disc. If they pass that point, we're not going to, spend all this time if they don't meet our muster in the beginning. So we have multiple stages of hiring, and then we make them do the disc at that point, along with multiple steps with a follow-up in that case. And depending on how well they follow up, depending on how they follow back to you, sometimes I even potentially let them chase a little bit and see how well they chase. It depends on the role. Specifically, I'm talking about sales here. So it's a really important thing to think about. You want them to chase you a little bit. You also want to see how well they follow structure, and you want to see how well they follow up, etc. So when you do those specific things, it puts you in this scenario where you have the ability to control what goes on. You see who they are. You can also see how they followed up with you, how they took no for an answer. All those things together make it for a very, very strong hire. And remember, before you even think about hiring a salesperson, you have to have your current sales pipeline completely full. And that's not just existing client follow-up or QBRs or those kind of things, but you need to have a decent amount of internal sales leads coming in, or you should be closing those. One of the most important things I did in my MSP, I did that also in 7-figure MSP that I run now, is I handled all the sales initially. I built the sales prospecting system. I built the processes. I built the slide decks. I built all this stuff ahead of time, and I did it. And then as I brought my sales hires in, part of our training was, you're going to shadow me. You're going to shadow me for a week or 2 weeks or whatever. And that really, really is effective because they can see you doing it. They can see how you do it. A lot of people, especially high DIs, learn by example, and they evolve by example. They understand the why then. And especially if you say, okay, see how I did that? This is the why. See how I did this? This is the why. So you have to make sure that these people are not only a personality fit as you're hiring them, but you have to make sure that you have process, system, structure underneath, because all those things make a huge difference towards growth and having the right hire. Because at the stage that many of us are at, even I'll tell you what, I'm a multi-million-dollar firm, and I don't know that I could survive a horrible hire. We actually had a non-fit hire a year ago. And it was hard. Like, from our standpoint, it was hard because you basically have to hire 2 people in that case, because you have one person that just didn't work out for some reason. And then you have to hire another person. That's the next step. So keep those things in mind. And if you guys have questions, comments, please put it on the comments below here. I will answer as we go, and we'll go from there. So hopefully that gets you in a place where you can find a good hire, find a good sales hire. But remember, on the front side, got to have enough leads, enough position, so you don't turn that closer into a prospector. You guys have a great day. Keep crushing it. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.